Okay, so this question is wanting us to use structured English. Structured English is a way we can design code. There are different ways we can design code. We can use pseudocode, structured English. We could use a flowchart. And also we could use a structure chart. There's more, but these are the ones you would do in, a state transition diagram. These are all design methods you would use at AS level. Structured English, I would say, would be one of the first things you would do alongside doing a flowchart. In fact, probably I'd do it second after a flowchart. So what actually is structured English? Structured English is simply writing program code, but as sentences to make it easier for other people to implement, especially those people who do not know how to code, but still needs to have an input on your app. So if I'm making an app with somebody else and I say to them, have a look at my structured English, they should be able to get to grips with parts of it. Now, we need to use structured English to describe this algorithm. This algorithm that would prompt, so we need to use, look what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do output here. Input, we've got new user, so we input a new user, and output a message, so we need another output, if exists or not. Usernames are stored in a text file, so we're using a text file. So with a text file, I need to open it. Each line in the file represents one name. So if I'm drawing this out, it would have Joe, Mark. Before a new name can be put into a text file, we need to check to see whether the name is unique. So we're going to have to take this name and put it into this text file. But before we put it into this text file, we need to check, is it Joe? Is it Maria? If it's none of those names, we can add the next name. Okay, so I've got a plan. So how would I do this? Well, the first thing I want to do, well, there's different order we can do this in. Pause the video, give it a go yourself first. And then I'm going to do a solution. Okay, well, you can open up the file and close it first, or you can get them to prompt and type in their username. So I'm going to do line 1. Prompt and input new user name. I'm going to put as string. 2. Open file in read mode. 3. Let's put it into an array. Well, actually, let's not. Let's do it using one line at a time. So we're going to open file and read mode. We're then going to, in order for us to know whether or not a name is unique, we could use a flag. This flag, what will happen is it will go through a text file, Joe, Maria, and flag will be set to false. Actually, let's set the flag to true. It is unique. If it hits Joe, flag will turn false. If it isn't Joe, it will stay as it's true. So that's what you do. So I'm going to initialize flag variable. Let me just delete this bit. And set to true. What we're going to do now is we're going to loop through each line of a text file. So loop while not end of file. So remember, that's in pseudocode. So we want to keep looping whilst we're not at the end of the text file. So we're not at the end yet. So go through each line. But we also want to stop when we find the username. So whilst we haven't found the username, keep looping. So and our flag is now. What we could probably do is actually, I'm going to change this so that this is false. So loop file, whilst we're not at the end of the file, and flag is false. So it's going to either loop until we're at the end of the file, or flag becomes true. There's two reasons why we'll stop the loop: when we're at the end of the file, or flag is true. 5. Read. Let's do that in caps. Read line from file in the loop. 6. If line matches new username, then let me just go down slightly, so excuse me a second. I'm going to put go to line 7. Flag is set to true. And I'm going to put in loop, Okay. What we're going to do now is this final bit, which is output the message to indicate whether or not it's unique. So let's first of all close file. And finally, so we've finished our loop, we've gone through it, it's either turned to true or we're at the end of the file. So these 3 things are in our loop. If flag is true, output unique. Otherwise, output not unique. I've spelled prompt wrong. So we had our prompt and our input. That was the first thing. Because if I was programming it, I need them to enter in their username and password. I could have opened up the file first, but I opened up file, so open file, and I put what mode it needs to be in, so in read mode. I'm saying that I'm going to set the flag variable. So I initialize it and set it to become false. So initialize is basically like create. So initialize flag variable and set to false. I then have my loop, which is not, whilst it's not the end of the file, and this is all the time we use this in pseudocode, we can't do this in Python, so we also do this in Stretch English as well. And also flag is false because it says here we need to go through each line to make sure that the name is going to be unique. If it's not unique, what's the point of continuing the loop? So if we find Mary straight away, what's the point of going for another million names? It makes no sense. We then read the line from the file in loop. Very important I put that. So in loop. I then do my if statement. So if line matches, I say go to line 7. I could put this all on one line. So I can put line 7 onto line 6 and not put this bit, but I put this bit just to be more fancy, I guess. Then what we need to do, sorry, just get my mouse, close the file, that's important. Then the final bit to output the message, which it tells us here. Output a message to indicate whether or not it's unique. Okay, let's try a different one. Okay, so what we have is a student developing an algorithm to count, so I'm going to underline that, the number of times a given string, so this is another match search string, appears in a 2D array. Okay, fine. The array items consist of 100 elements organized as 50 rows of 2 columns. Search string could appear in any row or column. Pause the video. What I'd like you to do is turn this pseudocode into structured English. Okay, well, you could go straight into this pseudocode and turn it into structured English, or you can try and understand the problem. We've got 50 rows of 2 columns, a 2D array, starting on 1, finishing on 50. And we're searching for something, so search string. Let's say Bob, and Bob could be in here, or could be in here, or could be here, who knows? We're searching for Bob. If we're having to turn this into structured English, let's do this line by line. I'm going to call this line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5, and line 6. So line 1, set, or you can say initialize count, and set it to be 0. So initialize count, set it to 0, we'll just set count to 0. Line 2, what we're going to do is we're going to go through, or I could say loop through, now the outer loop is responsible for going through each row. So we want to start on, if we've got 50 rows, line 1, then we want to go on to line 2, then we want to go on to line 3, then line 4. So we want to loop through a row in the array. Then what we want to do is loop through each column. In row. So I'm going to put in loop because we're in this loop here. So we're now doing this one. So we're checking this column, then we want to check this column. And inside each column, we want to, if column 1 element matches search string. What do we want to happen if it matches it? Does it tell us? Yeah, make count go up by 1. Easy. So let's just go down so I've got more space. In fact, I can put it on here. Actually, just do line 5. So if it matches, go to line 5, add, or you can say increment 1 to count. But we now go check column 2. So we check this column, let's check this column. So this is going to be the same again. 6, if column 2 element matches search string, go to line 7. Add 1 to count. And I'm going to put, let me just zoom out. Okay, so this is in loop or in a loop, because this bit actually is, let's start this bit again. It doesn't do this. Okay, this is the inner loop. So yeah, this bit of code is in our inner loop. So I'm going to put in the inner loop. In the inner loop. In the inner loop. In the inner loop. And then outside the loops, both loops, is this output. So 8 output the count variable with suitable message. So there we go, we're outputting this variable with a suitable message, i.e. number of times found. Okay, notice, again, we've got two loops, an outer loop and an inner loop. I could put in the outer loop here. Notice that I need to mention that we're going through a row, but it should say really each row. So we want to loop through each row. We want to loop through this, 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 and the inner loop, this and this. You should know how to do that in program code pretty comfortably, if you have plenty of experience with it. We've just got adding to our counts. We're doing our if statements. They're two different if statements. One's checking column 1, one's checking column 2, which is here. I've done them on different lines because they require different things. And then our output message, which is at the end here. Whilst it's line 6 here, it's line 8 in my pseudocode. Sorry, my structured English. Let's do another one. Alright guys, here's a scenario. Pause the video, give it a go. Okay, well, a student's learning about arrays. She wants to write a program that will search through. So we need a search variable. We need to go through a 1D array. So we need to go through many columns. So that needs to be in a loop. We need to count that contains. So we need to use an if statement and a count. And we need to do an output, which won't be inside of the loop. This will be outside the loop. Easy. Easy, easy, easy. This is very similar to what we've done in the previous exercises. Right, so step 1. As we're going to be using count to count the number of elements that contain the string called empty, we need to set count. So let's initialize. And set count to 0 to begin with. Then what we want to do is loop through all 100 elements. So let's do if the element matches empty in loop. So if it does, I'm going to put go to line 4, add 1 to count, or you can just say increment count. In the loop. I don't need the. In loop. At the end, output suitable message, with count variable. I'm going to do an example, i.e. This array has count empty elements. Boom, nice. Okay, there we go. Let's do one more. Pause the video, give this a go. Okay. So let's do this. A student is developing an algorithm to search for a 1D array. There we go again. The element of the array result contains a real value. The algorithm will output the average value, so we need to work out the average of all the elements and the number of elements with a value of 0. So we need something which will store the amount of 0. So let's initialize and set 0 count, so I'm going to make a variable called 0 count to 0. But in order for us to work out the average, we need to calculate, so this is our array, 2, 4, 1, 3. We need to be able to add up each element inside of it, so 6, 7, 10, and store it in a variable like total. So we need to make a variable called total. So initialize and set total to 0. And what we want to do now is loop through the array. So we are going to loop through length of array. We can put 100 times in array or whatever. So length of array. I'm going to put 100 like that. 4. Add element value to total variable. Obviously this needs to be in loop. So we need to take this and add it to total. So total will become 2, and then the next time 6. But we also need to check to see whether or not the element has 0 in it. So if element value, or just element, equals 0, then go to line 6, line 6, I'm going to put in loop, add 1 to 0 count, or you can say increment 0 count. And this also needs to be in the loop. So we're looping through blah 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 blah. Once the loop is finished, so we've gone through each element, we've done this, 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 we've done this. There's several things we need to do. We need to do an average, 7. We're going to set our average variable. Well, we need to set we're going to set a average variable, which we haven't made yet, but we're doing it right now. To our total divided by 100, and this will be a real number potentially. So we've just worked out the average. Output suitable message with average variable, and finally output suitable message with 0 count variable. And we are done.